Okay. Perfect. All right. I'm probably going to voice over this anyways, but let's see here. We've got a nice Kensei. This guy has been alive for maybe about 40-ish minutes. In that time, I've been spending a lot of that time getting dexterity potions. And so we have a pretty nice stat line there. I was hoping to get a health ring, but we only have an attack ring. So we'll just have to hope we don't get, the shit beat out of us. We are on a Kensei, so we do have heavy armor and a little bit of defense from our sheath. We're also on Crucible, though, so that is going to be -5 defense. Uh, so we should have about the same defense as, some of the squishier characters. Plus, not having a health ring, you should be about as tanky as I am or better. Uh, but getting that dexterity, getting those DPS stats are going to be pretty important for beating the boss and the monsters in here. We do have a tier 8 katana. We don't really have any like crazy enchantments or anything. Mana, wisdom, none of that really matters. Let's see here. So we're going to be taking our time, really, clearing what we can. We can ignore that monster if we want to. Everything in here is going to be... they're going to be immobile. They cannot move. And so... we're just kind of going to be clearing things at like our own pace, really. And whenever we feel, a little bit threatened, we're just going to sit back and let our pet heal us. That's another thing. We have a just a level 30 heal on our pet here. It does have a little bit of magic heal. I know that it is uncommon, but you can really think of this as just being a maxed common, because the rarity itself doesn't actually, increase the abilities at all. It just increases the cap for the levels. Once you kill that guy, it will occasionally be spawning those little seedlings. Do keep that in mind if you ever have to run back because of a large monster. Another thing is that sulfurous wetlands are very large. They have big rooms, and they have a lot of... You see that C on my map? What the fuck is that? This guy used to be like the most dangerous monster. He used to be smaller, and he didn't have that eye. The issue was that you would like walk up to him and he would awaken and then chase you, and he does crazy damage. He's decently quick, but he used to be a way more camouflaged as one of the trees, so you couldn't tell him apart until he awoke, with the exception of a red dot on the minimap. And, he'd just be like one of these trees, and you'd be like walking up doing your thing, and then he'd awaken and then insta-kill you if you weren't paying attention. Nowadays, he's a lot easier to spot. I'm not sure. I kind of have mixed feelings on that nerf. I think it makes the sulfurous wetlands... It had a certain kind of aesthetic to it before, and I kind of liked how having a monster blend into the environment like that, it was kind of unique. Now it's painfully obvious that it's gonna come alive and kill you, so I don't know. I think it was kind of a negative change. Obviously, it makes things less, a little less fucked up to learn, a little bit easier. You're not gonna be confused by some tree coming alive and killing you, but I think that was kind of the charm of Sulfurous. So this is a dragon. It is a pretty rough creature, and it will be trying to rotate around you, basically. So if you are a sword class, then it might be a little rough for you to actually hit them. Ow. We're just kind of going to sit here a little bit. As a katana class, you have like just barely a little bit more range, but I do believe that the dragon itself has a few different attacking phases that it'll go through, and in one of them it will be close enough for a melee to hit. So if you're a sword class trying to deal with it, you're just going to have to be a little bit more patient than others. This is another large enemy. Whenever I say that you're dealing with large enemies, this is what I'm talking about. Everything else is so far has been like small enemies, with exception of like the dragon, those fake trees. And again, we can kind of ignore this guy, is what I would say if he wasn't smack dab in the middle of our path. So I guess we're gonna have to go and kill him. If you have a little bit better pet healing, then you can just ignore those guys, especially because they stop shooting at you if you are too far away from them. They just kind of ignore you. So you can ignore them. It's kind of nice in that. We're going to swap to Icar here. There we are. Honestly, I'm almost wondering if getting all this dexterity might have been a little overkill, but I don't think so. The boss itself is going to be quite the task, and having the DPS stats in order to deal with that will be quite important. Will be pretty important, so do keep that in mind when you are prepping for it. So yeah, one thing you're going to have to try and get good at is walking backwards while dealing with a threat, because a lot of the large enemies are going to force you to walk backwards. This is one of the exceptions. He just kind of sits there and spawns these goobers. I missed an O2. That is sad, but we will persevere. I guess part of it is also the paramount attack ring. That's also contributing a lot to our DPS stats. These DPS stats are like above average for a quote-unquote new character. I did get a few extra attack potions, and then there's the attack ring, of course. But you can also make up for that with like a tier 11, a higher tiered weapon. You know, tier 10 is going to be like equivalent of a dozen DPS stats or something like that. Maybe not quite a dozen. Well, I guess if it's plus 2 tiers, then yeah, it'd be about right. If you're not a heavy armor class, then you will also be able to benefit from DPS stats on your armor. You'll be getting a little bit of attack or even more dexterity, I think, if you are on a leather. But yeah, just make sure that you can confidently deal with these enemies. Like I said, this is kind of... I tried to go for sort of bare bones minimum requirements to be beating this dungeon. And we are dealing with the enemies at a pretty reasonable pace. It's not taking too long, and I'm not blowing through them super quick either. You will have a much easier time if you are a range class as well, especially something with a bit more range than like a bow, for example. You'll be sitting pretty if you're on a staff class. Yeah, it does sort of suck missing that O2, but that's alright. Okay, this is going to be a decently important rotating boss, so it'll be good to catch you up on that if you are not super familiar with rotating. There are a lot of phases here. For this one, do keep in mind that these grenades will only explode once they hit the floor. So you can feel free to kind of walk through them until then. Okay. I walked back there because I thought that we had phased it and it had spawned things, but I think it will only do that. Okay. We phased it, but I think this was like a nothing burger of a phase. It might add some new attacks to its pool. I don't know. Because, like, whenever a boss will just randomly cuts its attack short like that, like it did for that one, like a couple ago, then that usually means that you've brought it to a certain health amount, and it's been phased, and it is going to a new state. So, like, right here, we brought it to 2/3, and now it has spawned these goobers here. You don't need to shoot them. I was just showing them to you. But their shots will expose and do a little bit of damage. On this one, you can try to... Okay, we're going to rotate. This is a very good DPS phase. Just keep in mind that on the next one, you need to rotate in the other direction. These the big bullets here do a lot of damage, so keep that in mind. Oh yeah, and also the crucible here also makes it so that we can... Oh, I have enough range for that. That's crazy. I didn't think I did. The crucible also lowers the amount of health that I'm getting from my... both potions and my pet. Ooh. This is a really rough phase. I almost wonder if I should try to kill the boss a little bit more slowly just to make sure that I can, like, go over all of its phases. We're gonna chillax a little bit on this phase. Just because I was already low, and this phase has some fast projectiles. So if you're a melee going in on a phase with fast projectiles, be wary that you might not have a whole lot of time to dodge some of them. This is its last phase. You see we got it to 1/3. So, of course, the biggest change here is our arena now has a bunch of sulfur water in it. Okay. We're going to kind of chill on this phase. This one you can actually do like this. If not, make sure you are, don't worry as much about the bombs, worry about the bullets. For this one, you need to go to kind of like a corner there like that, because it's going to, oh, we phased it. Okay. I'm going to try my best to show this phase in full, so I'm going to stop attacking. Get some... Okay, and then the last flash is always fake. It's just going to go to its next attack. I think there are some other phases here that we're going to miss, but that's okay. We got all the important ones. Those were like the toughest ones. We got all of them. So that's nice. Okay, very cool. Now, I'd like to direct your attention to the mini-map. First of all, you'll notice this dungeon's fucking huge, but also you'll notice a yellow dot. That's going to be our treasure room. And we are going to go and activate it. The treasure room is activatable without killing the boss, but it will be revealed to you if you have killed the boss. And then after that, you need to go back to the beginning. Also, if you're wondering why I didn't use my Kensei ability, it's specifically... I'm only using Kensei to try and show how like a vaguely more melee oriented class would be able to do some phases. And I didn't want to dodge through any of the bullets because, like, you know, only Kensei and maybe Trickster can do that. Of course, you know, this is a guide. I'm not just completing this Sulfur on this character for shits and giggles. Okay, so you go back to spawn after you activate the treasure room, and you will actually have two different kinds of turrets here. So the kind of turret you get, it will have different attacks throughout all of the tree's next phases. And then you just need to go to wherever the arrow is pointing. So we got, at the very start... Oh my god. I'm pissed, actually. There was no indicator for that, was there? Or maybe it was out of rendering distance. I don't know what happened there. Okay, well that's kind of rough.